The conference room smelled like expensive leather and fear. David Sanders stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows on the 42nd floor of Meridian Tower, watching the city below move like blood through arteries. Urgent, essential, indifferent. His reflection stared back at him, a man who'd learned to wear exhaustion like a second skin. The gray at his temples had arrived early, uninvited guests that his 38 years hadn't prepared him for. His tie hung loose around his neck, the top button of his white shirt undone, because somewhere between dropping Lily at school and this emergency board meeting, he'd forgotten how to breathe properly. Preparing and narrating this type of story takes a lot of time and effort. If you like the story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch every story of our channel, turn on the bell icon. Behind him, voices rose and fell like waves against rock. The quarterly reports were catastrophic. Meridian Industries, the mid-sized logistics company where David served as operations director, was hemorrhaging contracts to larger competitors. The board members, men in suits that cost more than David's monthly mortgage, threw around words like restructuring and downsizing with the casual cruelty of those who'd never wondered if their daughter's piano lessons would fit into next month's budget. David, your thoughts? Charles Whitmore, the silver-haired CEO, cut through the noise with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. David turned from the window, carrying the weight of 40 employees who trusted him, who had families and car payments and dreams that didn't include unemployment. "We need innovation, not amputation," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. "Cut staff now, and we lose the institutional knowledge that makes us competitive. What we need is a partnership, someone who understands global supply chains and has the capital to modernize our infrastructure." "And where exactly do we find this miracle worker?" Margaret Chun, the CFO, asked with barely concealed skepticism. David's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. It buzzed again, then again. The pattern he'd taught Lily for emergencies. 3 short bursts. His heart stopped. "Excuse me," he said, already moving toward the door. "Family emergency." He didn't wait for permission. In the hallway, his fingers trembled as he unlocked his phone. 7 missed calls from Oakwood Elementary. 3 voicemails. 2 texts from Ms. Rodriguez, Lily's 3rd-grade teacher. "Please call immediately. Lily is safe but upset. Incident in classroom." The elevator took centuries to arrive. David's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. Lily was 8 years old, bright as summer lightning, and carried more weight on her small shoulders than any child should. Since her mother Jessica's death 2 years ago, a car accident on a rainy Tuesday that had shattered their world into before and after, Lily had become simultaneously more fragile and more fierce. She laughed less, clung more, asked questions David didn't know how to answer. The drive to Oakwood Elementary normally took 20 minutes. David made it in 12, his knuckles white on the steering wheel of his aging Honda Accord. The car needed new brakes. The check engine light had been on for 3 weeks. These were problems for future David, the one who had time to care about things that weren't his daughter. Ms. Rodriguez met him at the classroom door. She was young, maybe 26, with kind eyes that had seen too much already. "Mr. Sanders, thank you for coming so quickly. What happened? Is Lily hurt?" "Physically, no. But emotionally." She gestured toward the reading corner, where Lily sat curled in a blue beanbag chair, her favorite stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hopsworth, a gray bunny worn soft by love, clutched against her chest. Her dark curls, so like Jessica's, fell across her face like a curtain she could hide behind. "There was an assignment today," Ms. Rodriguez explained softly. "Family trees. The children were supposed to draw their families and present them to the class. Lily drew herself, you, and..." She hesitated. "And her mother, with angel wings." David's throat closed. He'd signed the permission slip for this assignment last week, not thinking, not remembering that every school activity was now a minefield of grief. "Brandon Walker, you know, the mayor's son," he said some things. "Called Lily a liar for drawing someone who wasn't real anymore. Said his dad told him that kids from broken homes make up stories for attention." Ms. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "I've already contacted Brandon's parents. He'll be apologizing. But Lily, She threw her art project in the trash and hasn't spoken since. David crossed the classroom in 4 strides and knelt beside the beanbag chair. "Lily Bug," he said gently, "can you look at me?" Slowly, his daughter's face emerged from behind her hair. Her eyes, Jessica's eyes, that particular shade of hazel that changed with her mood, were red-rimmed and defiant. "I'm not a liar," she whispered. "I know, sweetheart. I know you're not. Mommy was real. She is real. Just because she's in heaven doesn't mean she wasn't here. Doesn't mean she's not still my mommy." David pulled her into his arms, feeling her small body shake with the force of holding back tears. Mr. Hopsworth squashed between them, and David breathed in the scent of his daughter's strawberry shampoo, the one Jessica used to buy in bulk because it was Lily's favorite. "Your mommy was the most real person I ever knew," David said into her hair. "She made terrible jokes. She burned pancakes every Sunday. She sang off-key in the car and didn't care who heard. She loved you more than all the stars in the sky." He pulled back, cupping Lily's face in his hands. "And she's still your mommy. Death doesn't change that. Nothing Brandon Walker says changes that." "I hate him," Lily said, her voice small and fierce. "I know, but hatred is heavy, Bug. It'll make you tired." "I'm already tired, Daddy." The honesty of it broke something in David's chest. He was tired too. Tired of single parenthood, of being both mother and father, of making breakfast and checking homework and signing permission slips and attending parent-teacher conferences alone. Tired of sleeping on half a bed, of cooking for 2 instead of 3, of answering Lily's impossible questions about why good people die and whether heaven has playgrounds. He gathered his daughter from the beanbag chair, nodded his thanks to Ms. Rodriguez, and carried Lily out of the school even though she was getting too big for carrying. In the parking lot, he buckled her into her booster seat. Another thing she was almost too big for, growing up too fast despite his silent prayers for time to slow down. "Can we go to the park?" Lily asked as he started the car. "The one with the purple slide?" David glanced at his watch. 2:47 p.m. The board meeting would be over by now. He'd missed the conclusion, missed whatever decision had been made about the future of Meridian Industries. His phone sat silent in the cup holder. No emergency callbacks from Charles Whitmore. Either his job was secure or it wasn't. And right now, his daughter needed the purple slide more than he needed to know. "Purple slide it is," he said. Riverside Park sprawled along the eastern edge of the city, where the Clearwater River bent like an elbow and the old oak trees had stood since before the city was a city. The purple slide was part of the newer playground equipment, installed 3 years ago after a fundraising campaign that Jessica had co-chaired. There was a small plaque near the swings with her name on it, along with the other volunteers. David avoided looking at it these days. Lily ran ahead, Mr. Hopsworth forgotten on the bench beside David. He watched her climb the ladder, her small hands gripping each rung with determination. At the top, she paused, looking back at him. "Watch me, Daddy." Always watching, Lilybug. She disappeared down the slide's purple tunnel with a whoop of laughter that sounded almost like before, almost like the girl she used to be. David's phone buzzed. He glanced down. A text from Charles Whitmore. "Need to talk. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Important opportunity." Another text, this one from his sister Marie in Seattle. "Saw the photos you sent of Lily's birthday party. She's getting so big. How are you holding up? Really?" And a third message, from a number he didn't recognize. "Mr. Sanders, this is Victoria Ashford's office. Ms. Ashford would like to schedule a meeting regarding potential collaboration between Ashford Global and Meridian Industries. Please respond with your availability. Victoria Ashford." David knew the name the way everyone in the logistics industry knew it. The 34-year-old CEO who transformed her father's struggling shipping company into a multinational corporation worth billions. She'd been featured in Fortune, Forbes, Businessweek. They called her the Ice Queen of Commerce, a title she'd apparently embraced rather than fought. David had never met her, never expected to. She operated in an entirely different atmosphere, where the air was thinner and the stakes were measured in millions rather than thousands. Why would Victoria Ashford want to meet with him? "Daddy, come push me on the swings." David pocketed his phone and jogged over to where Lily had claimed the middle swing, her legs pumping to gain momentum. He pushed her gently, then harder as she demanded, "Higher, higher." Her laughter carried across the playground, and for a moment, just a moment, David let himself exist only here, only now. In this pocket of afternoon sunlight where his daughter was happy and the world's complications couldn't reach them. But the world always reached them eventually. An older woman sat on the bench beside Mr. Hopsworth, her silver hair cut in a stylish bob, her clothes expensive but understated. She was watching Lily with the kind of soft smile that suggested either grandmother or therapist. "She's beautiful," the woman said as David returned to collect his jacket. "Your daughter." "Thank you," David replied, cordial but cautious. Strangers in parks always set off his parental alarm bells. "I'm Eleanor Hartley," she said, extending a hand. "I volunteer with the Riverside Community Center. We're running a program this fall, Art Through Grief. It's for children who've lost parents, ages 7 to 12. Free of charge, includes art therapy, group activities, and professional counseling." She pulled a brochure from her purse. "Your daughter." I overheard a bit of what she said about her mother. "I hope I'm not overstepping." David took the brochure, the paper smooth and professionally printed. Art Through Grief, creating space for young hearts. The center's logo was a heart with a paintbrush running through it. "I'm not sure," David said carefully. "She's in regular therapy already. I don't want to overwhelm her." "Of course. But sometimes children need to be around other children who understand. Loss can be very isolating, especially at her age." Eleanor's eyes were kind but knowing. "The program starts in 3 weeks. Every Saturday afternoon, 2 hours. Just think about it." She stood, leaving the brochure in David's hand, and walked away before he could respond. David looked down at the colorful pamphlet, then at Lily, who was now attempting to do tricks on the monkey bars with another little girl she'd just met. His phone buzzed again. "Charles Whitmore, Victoria Ashford is the opportunity. Don't screw this up." The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., the same time it screamed every morning, dragging David from dreams he could never quite remember. He slapped it silent and lay for 3 precious seconds in the dark, gathering the strength to become the person the day required. The bed beside him was empty, made up with military precision on Jessica's side, because he couldn't bear the visual reminder of absence. Her pillow remained, though. He'd tried removing it once and found himself in the linen closet at 2 a.m., searching through vacuum-sealed bags until he found it again. The house was a 3-bedroom colonial in Maplewood Heights, a neighborhood that straddled the line between aspirational and affordable. They'd bought it 6 years ago, when Jessica was pregnant with Lily and David had just been promoted to operations manager. The mortgage had seemed manageable then, with 2 incomes. Now it was a monthly terror, a number that appeared in his banking app like a threat. David's morning routine was a choreographed dance of efficiency. Shower in 7 minutes. Shave in 3. Coffee brewing while he woke Lily at 6:15. The coffee maker was an ancient Mr. Coffee machine that Jessica had received as a college graduation gift. It rattled and hissed like it was angry at being awake, but it made coffee strong enough to fuel David's increasingly impossible days. "Lilybug, time to wake up," he called from her doorway, switching on the lamp shaped like a crescent moon. A groan emerged from beneath the purple comforter. 5 more minutes. "That's what you said yesterday, and you ended up brushing your teeth in the car. The car has Bluetooth. School bathrooms don't. I made a logical choice." David smiled despite himself. Lily had Jessica's wit, that sharp intelligence that could make him laugh even when he was exhausted. "Up. Now. We're making eggs today. Can we have the ones with faces?" "Always with faces." In the kitchen, David cracked eggs into a pan while Lily appeared in her pajamas, pink with unicorns, carrying Mr. Hopsworth and her tablet. She climbed onto the breakfast bar stool, her legs swinging. "Can I watch while you cook?" "Homework first." "What's due today?" Lily's face fell. "Math worksheet. The one about fractions." David flipped the eggs, using a spatula to create happy faces with the yolks. "How many problems left?" 8. "So you're 3/4 done, Daddy?" Stop making math happen in real life. Math is life, bug. Finish those 8 problems while I make toast, and you can have 20 minutes of screen time before school. 15 problems for 30 minutes? Nice try. 8 problems, 20 minutes, and a kiss goodbye. Deal. While Lily worked through fractions with the resigned determination of someone who'd inherited her father's logical mind but her mother's creative spirit, David assembled lunches. Peanut butter and jelly for Lily, cut into triangles, not squares, because squares were sad shapes. A turkey sandwich for himself, usually eaten cold at his desk around 2 p.m. if he was lucky. Apple slices for both of them. A juice box for Lily, black coffee in a travel mug for David. The routine was comforting and suffocating in equal measure. Every morning was the same, and every morning David felt like he was one mistake away from the whole precarious structure collapsing. Daddy. Lily's voice was small. Yeah? Bug. Is it normal that sometimes I can't remember what Mommy's voice sounded like? The spatula froze in David's hand. He set it down carefully, turned off the stove, and moved to sit beside his daughter at the breakfast bar. I think that's normal, he said quietly. Our brains aren't always good at recording the sounds we love. They're better with images. Do you remember? I do. But I also recorded a lot of videos of your mom. Want to know a secret? David pulled out his phone, navigating to a folder he kept hidden in his photos. Not hidden from Lily, but hidden from his own random scrolling when the grief was too fresh. I recorded her singing you lullabies when you were a baby. I recorded her reading you stories. I recorded her saying good night and good morning and I love you in about 50 different ways. Lily's eyes widened. Can I hear? David opened a video from 3 years ago. Jessica appeared on the screen, younger, healthy, alive. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore the oversized Maplewood Marathon t-shirt she'd claimed as her official pajama top. She was leaning over a much smaller Lily, tucking her into bed. Once upon a time, Jessica's voice sang out, warm and slightly hoarse from a summer cold. There was a little girl who was braver than any knight, smarter than any wizard, and more loved than any princess in any kingdom. They watched the entire 3-minute video in silence. When it ended, Lily's eyes were wet. She was really real, wasn't she? Lily whispered. The realest, David confirmed, his own throat tight. The school drop-off line at Oakwood Elementary moved with the frantic energy of a stock exchange floor. David kissed Lily goodbye. She still let him, though he knew those days were numbered, and watched her run toward her friend Maya, the resilience of childhood already knitting her back together from yesterday's trauma. Mr. Sanders? A voice called from the curb. Principal Diane Morrison approached his car window, her expression apologetic. Do you have a quick minute? David put the car in park, earning annoyed honks from the vehicles behind him. He stepped out, following Principal Morrison to the sidewalk. I wanted to personally apologize for yesterday, she began. The family tree assignment. We should have been more sensitive, more aware that not every family looks the same. Ms. Rodriguez has been with us less than a year, and she's learning, but that's no excuse. Is Brandon being disciplined? David asked. He's written a letter of apology to Lily, and his parents have been informed of our expectations. Her tone suggested that conversation hadn't gone well. I also wanted you to know that we're implementing a new policy. Before any assignment that might touch on family structure, religion, or potentially sensitive topics, we'll send home a notification so parents can prepare their children. David nodded. It was something. Not enough, but something. Thank you for telling me. Lily's a special child, Mr. Sanders. Her teacher last year told me she wrote a story about a girl who could talk to stars. The stars were all people who had died, and they told her stories about what heaven was like. Principal Morrison's eyes were kind. We want to support her however we can. I appreciate that. The drive from Oakwood Elementary to Meridian Tower took 35 minutes in morning traffic. David used the time to listen to audiobooks, currently a management theory text that his boss had recommended, something about disruptive innovation and market adaptation. It was dry as toast and twice as boring, but David absorbed it anyway, always learning. always trying to be better at his job because his job was what kept the lights on and food on the table. Meridian Industries occupied floors 12 through 15 of a mid-rise building in the financial district. The lobby still had the original marble from the 1980s, streaked with brown and tan like coffee stains. The elevator was slow and made concerning grinding noises that everyone pretended not to hear. David's office was an interior cubicle, no window, no door, but at least it had walls that went up high enough to create the illusion of privacy. His desk was organized chaos. Reports, shipping manifests, efficiency analyses, and a framed photo of Lily from last summer at the beach. She was building a sandcastle, her face scrunched in concentration, and Jessica's shadow fell across the sand beside her. A ghost of presence David hadn't noticed until the photos were developed. "Morning, David." Ryan Torres appeared at the cubicle entrance, coffee in hand. Ryan was the logistics coordinator, 28, brilliant with data, and one of the few people at Meridian who'd known Jessica. He'd worked with her in HR before her death. "Heard you missed the end of yesterday's meeting. Family emergency. Lily needed me. She okay? She will be." David logged into his computer, watching the ancient machine wheeze to life. "What did I miss?" Ryan glanced around, then lowered his voice. "They're bringing in a consultant. Someone big to evaluate whether we're worth saving or should be sold for parts." "Who?" "That's the crazy part. Victoria Ashford." David's hand froze on his mouse. "The Victoria Ashford? The one and only." Apparently Charles played golf with her father last month. Made some pitch about synergistic opportunities. She agreed to review our operations. If she likes what she sees, Ashford Global might partner with us, maybe acquire a minority stake. If she doesn't. Ryan made a throat-cutting gesture. "When is she coming?" "Today. 8 o'clock meeting with senior leadership, which includes you, buddy. Charles wants you there." David looked down at his shirt, wrinkled from the dryer, a small spot of egg yolk on the cuff that Lily had pointed out in the car and he'd forgotten about. He looked like what he was. A man who dressed in the dark, made breakfast one-handed while helping his daughter with homework, and spent his morning dealing with elementary school drama instead of preparing for the meeting that could determine whether he still had a job next month. "I need 10 minutes, David said. "You need a miracle?" Ryan replied, but his smile was sympathetic. "But hey, I heard she's human." Mostly. The conference room at 8 o'clock was full of Meridian's leadership. 12 people who'd built this company from a regional delivery service into a mid-sized logistics operation with contracts across 6 states. Charles Whitmore sat at the head of the table, his silver hair perfectly styled, his suit probably worth more than David's car. Margaret Chun was beside him, her laptop open, her expression unreadable. Around the table, the heads of sales, marketing, finance, HR, and operations management. And at the opposite end of the table, backlit by the floor-to-ceiling windows, sat Victoria Ashford. David had seen her photos in business magazines, but photos didn't prepare you for the actual presence of her. She was tall, maybe 5'9", with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Her suit was charcoal gray, tailored to perfection, and she wore no jewelry except small diamond studs that caught the light when she turned her head. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and currently scanning each person in the room with the assessment of a chess master evaluating pieces. "Thank you all for being here," Charles began. "As you know, Meridian is at a crossroads. We've invited Ms. Ashford to evaluate our operations and explore potential partnership opportunities. Victoria, I'll turn it over to you." Victoria Ashford stood. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear and precise, with the faintest trace of a British accent from boarding schools and a childhood spent in London. "I'll be direct," she said. "Ashford Global is interested in expanding our North American logistics network. Meridian has strong regional relationships and a reputation for reliability. However, your infrastructure is outdated, your technology platforms are 10 years behind industry standard, and your operational efficiency is roughly 63% of where it should be." The room tensed. Charles's smile became strained. "That said," Victoria continued, "efficiency problems are solvable with capital investment and strategic restructuring. Reputation problems are not. You have something my company values. Trust. Your clients stay with you despite better pricing elsewhere because they trust you'll deliver. That's worth investing in. She clicked a remote, and a presentation appeared on the screen behind her. Charts, graphs, projections. Over the next 2 weeks, I'll be embedding myself in your operations. I'll observe. I'll interview staff at every level. I'll review your processes. At the end of that period, I'll make a recommendation to my board about whether Ashford Global should pursue a partnership, and if so, what that partnership should look like. Her eyes landed on David. You're David Sanders, Operations Director? Yes, ma'am. Your efficiency reports from last quarter showed a 7% improvement in delivery times without additional staff. How? David stood, aware that every eye in the room was on him. We reorganized the routing algorithm and cross-trained drivers to handle multiple vehicle types. It allowed us to reduce empty miles and increase load consolidation. Whose idea was that? Mine, David said. But implementation was a team effort. Ryan Torres in logistics did the data modeling, and the drivers themselves suggested most of the practical adjustments. Victoria studied him for a long moment. I'd like you to walk me through your operations floor this afternoon. 2 o'clock. Of course. She smiled, a small, professional expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. Excellent. Gentlemen, ladies, I look forward to learning what makes Meridian worth saving. The meeting dispersed. David felt Ryan's congratulatory pat on his back, heard Margaret Chen's whispered, "Good job," but his mind was already racing ahead to 2 o'clock. He needed to brief the warehouse staff, make sure everything was running smoothly, prepare intelligent answers to whatever questions Victoria Ashford would ask. His phone buzzed. A text from Oakwood Elementary. Lily forgot her lunch. Can you drop it off? David looked at his watch. 10:47 a.m. He had just over 3 hours until the most important meeting of his career. The school was a 40-minute round trip. He grabbed his keys, because Victoria Ashford might determine his professional future, but Lily was his actual future, the only future that truly mattered. The rest was just details. The lunch delivery to Oakwood Elementary became an unexpected window into the world his daughter inhabited without him. David found Lily in the cafeteria, sitting alone at the end of a long table while other children laughed and traded Pokemon cards around her. Her head was down, her fingers tracing patterns on the plastic table surface. Delivery for Miss Lily Sanders, David announced, setting the lunchbox beside her. Lily looked up, surprise and relief flooding her face. Daddy, you came. Always. Bug. Forgot something pretty important. I know. I'm sorry. I was thinking about the math test and... Hey, no apologizing. We all forget things. David crouched beside her, lowering his voice. You eating alone today? Lily's eyes darted to a table across the cafeteria where a group of girls sat together, including the one who'd been on the playground with her yesterday. Maya's having a birthday party this weekend. She invited everyone but me. Did you two have a fight? No, but her mom said. Lily's voice dropped to barely a whisper. I heard her mom tell Maya that I might be too much right now. That kid's dealing with grief are complicated. David's hands clenched into fists before he consciously relaxed them. Maya's mother was Diane Walker, married to Mayor Richard Walker, the same Walker family whose son Brandon had called Lily a liar yesterday, the same family who'd made millions in real estate development while preaching community values from political podiums. You are not too much, David said firmly. You're exactly enough. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve your friendship. Then why does it hurt? Because you have a big heart, Bug. Big hearts feel big hurts, but they also feel big joys. He squeezed her hand. Eat your lunch. I have to get back to work, but we'll talk more tonight. Okay. Okay. Daddy. Lily's voice stopped him as he stood. Thank you for coming. You always come. The words followed David back to his car, back onto the highway, back into the glass and steel reality of adult problems. But they changed something in him, hardened some resolve that had been softening under the weight of constant exhaustion. Victoria Ashford was exactly on time at 2 o'clock. arriving at the warehouse floor in practical low heels and with a leather portfolio that probably cost more than David's monthly salary. She'd removed her suit jacket, revealing a crisp white blouse, and her dark hair was still pulled back with that severe precision that suggested she didn't waste time on anything non-essential. "Mr. Sanders." She greeted him with a handshake that was firm and brief. "Thank you for making time." "Of course. We're glad to have you here." The lie was polite and professional. No one was glad to have the person who might recommend their termination walking through their workspace. The warehouse was a sprawling 50,000-square-foot facility on the western edge of the industrial district, filled with rows of shelving, forklifts humming like mechanical bees, and the constant beep-beep-beep of reversing vehicles. David had worked here for 12 years, starting as a warehouse associate right out of college, learning every position before moving into management. He knew the names of every employee, knew which ones had kids in college and which ones were saving for weddings, knew who called out sick because they were actually sick versus who called out because their band had a gig the night before. "We run 3 shifts, David explained as they walked. "This is Shift B, our largest crew. 43 employees covering receiving, sorting, loading, and dispatch. Average tenure is 7 years, which is about 3 times the industry standard. Low turnover usually indicates either good management or limited opportunities elsewhere," Victoria observed. "Which is it?" "Both, if I'm honest. We pay slightly above market rate, provide health insurance, and treat people like humans instead of resources. But we're also in a city where manufacturing jobs have dried up and logistics is one of the few stable industries left." They approached a sorting station where Maria Gonzalez, a 52-year-old grandmother who'd been with Meridian for 9 years, was scanning packages with practiced efficiency. Maria looked up, saw Victoria, and her expression shuddered, friendly openness replaced by careful professionalism. "Maria, this is Victoria Ashford," David said. "She's evaluating our operations. Would you mind explaining your process?" Maria's English was accented but clear. "I scan each package, check the routing code against the destination in the system, and sort into the appropriate bay for loading. On a good day, I process about 800 packages per shift." "What makes a day bad?" Victoria asked. "System glitches, wrong labels, packages that don't match the manifest." Maria's hands never stopped moving as she talked, muscle memory guiding her through tasks she could probably do blindfolded. "Or when we're understaffed and everyone has to cover extra positions." "How often are you understaffed?" Maria glanced at David, uncertain how honest to be. He gave her a small nod. "Once, twice a week lately. People call out, and we don't have enough floaters to cover. Management tries, but there's only so much budget for extra shifts." Victoria made a note in her portfolio. "Thank you, Maria." They moved through the warehouse, Victoria asking sharp questions that revealed exactly how much she understood about logistics operations. She noticed the outdated scanner system that required manual entry when barcodes were damaged. She observed the inefficient layout that forced forklifts to make unnecessary passes. She calculated in real time how much productivity was being lost to preventable delays. But she also noticed other things. She noticed Tom Rivera, a 24-year-old warehouse associate, helping an older colleague lift a heavy box despite it not being his job. She noticed the handmade birthday banner in the break room for someone named Jackie. She noticed the way employees greeted David with genuine warmth, not the forced enthusiasm of people afraid of their boss. "Your people seem to respect you," Victoria said as they walked back toward the offices. "I respect them first," David replied. "Most of them work harder than I do, for less money and less recognition. That's unusually self-aware for middle management. My father worked in a factory for 30 years. He taught me that the people doing the actual work are the ones who make companies successful, not the people in corner offices taking credit for it." Victoria stopped walking, turning to face him fully. Her dark eyes were assessing, but there was something else there too. A flicker of surprise, maybe, or curiosity. "Your father sounds wise." He was. He died of a heart attack on the factory floor 6 years ago. He was 58 and still coming in for overtime shifts because healthcare costs were bankrupting him. David hadn't meant to say that, Hadn't meant to make it personal. I'm sorry. That's not relevant to. It's extremely relevant, Victoria interrupted. It tells me why you reorganized your routing to avoid layoffs instead of recommending staff cuts to improve margins. Would you have recommended staff cuts? 3 years ago? Yes. Victoria resumed walking. But I've learned that companies are ecosystems, not machines. Cut the wrong parts, and the whole system collapses. Your loyalty to your employees might be your company's greatest asset. They reached David's office. Cubicle? Really? And Victoria's eyebrows rose slightly at the lack of door. Operations director doesn't get an office? I sit with my team. Hard to know what's happening on the floor if I'm behind a closed door. David gestured to his desk. Besides, I'm terrible at keeping plants alive. No window means no plant guilt. Victoria laughed, a short, surprised sound that seemed to startle her as much as it did him. Plant guilt. That's actually relatable. You kill a lot of plants, Ms. Ashford? I killed an entire orchid collection. They were a gift from my father. I felt like I'd murdered his retirement hobby. She caught herself, the professional mask sliding back into place. I'd like to review your routing algorithms. The improvements you mentioned in the meeting. Can you walk me through them? For the next 90 minutes, David pulled up spreadsheets, routing maps, and efficiency reports. Victoria absorbed information like a computer, asking questions that revealed she understood the technical details better than some of his own staff. They debated the merits of hub-and-spoke versus point-to-point routing. They discussed the rising costs of fuel and how it impacted delivery radius profitability. They argued, professionally, intellectually, about whether automation would replace human workers or augment them. It was, David realized with surprise, the most engaging work conversation he'd had in months. Your methodology is sound, Victoria said finally, leaning back in the uncomfortable office chair she'd pulled up to his desk. Your execution is hampered by insufficient technology investment. These routing calculations? You're doing them manually? We have software, but it's basic. Can't handle real-time adjustments for traffic, weather, or last-minute order changes. Ashford Global has a proprietary AI system that does exactly that. Implementation cost is roughly $200,000, but ROI is typically achieved within 18 months through fuel savings and improved delivery times. David whistled low. $200,000. That's half our annual technology budget. That's why partnerships exist. Ashford covers infrastructure costs. Meridian provides regional expertise and client relationships. Both companies benefit. Victoria checked her watch, an elegant silver piece that probably cost more than David's car repairs. I have a dinner meeting at 6. Can we continue this tomorrow? Of course. What time works for you? 7 a.m. I'll buy you coffee. David thought of Lily, of getting her ready for school, of the morning routine that couldn't be disrupted. I can't do 7. School drop-off. Could we do 8:30? Victoria's expression flickered, something between surprise and calculation. You have children? A daughter. Lily. She's 8. And no one else can handle school drop-off? The question was asked neutrally, without judgment, but David felt the familiar defensive tension in his shoulders. It's just me, he said simply. So no one else can handle it. I see. 8:30 works. There's a coffee shop across the street, Roasted Dreams. Meet you there. I'll be there. Victoria gathered her portfolio, stood, and extended her hand again. Her handshake was the same as before, firm, brief, professional. But this time, she held his gaze for an extra moment. Your daughter is lucky to have you, Mr. Sanders. David. And thank you. I'm the lucky one. After Victoria left, David sat at his desk for a long moment, staring at the routing algorithms on his screen without really seeing them. Ryan appeared, leaning against the cubicle wall. So, how'd it go? Hard to say. She's intense, brilliant, saw through everything to what actually matters. Did she give any indication which way she's leaning? No, but she agreed to meet again tomorrow, which I'm choosing to interpret as a good sign. Or she's thorough about due diligence before recommending we all get fired. You're a real ray of sunshine, Ryan. Someone has to balance your optimism. Ryan's phone buzzed. He checked it and winced. Incident in Bay 3. Martinez dropped a pallet, and packages went everywhere. I gotta go supervise cleanup. Need help? Nah, you go get your kid. Give Lily a high five for me. David logged out of his computer, gathered his things, and made it to Oakwood Elementary with 3 minutes to spare before dismissal. He waited in the pickup line, watching parents in SUVs that cost more than his annual salary, feeling the familiar disconnect between his life and the lives of the families around him. Lily emerged from the school doors with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She wasn't smiling, but she wasn't crying either. Neutral, which David had learned to accept as a small victory. How was the rest of your day, Bug? Okay. Ms. Rodriguez made Brandon apologize. He read a letter in front of the whole class about how families come in different shapes and he was wrong to judge mine. How'd that feel? Embarrassing. Not for me, for him. He cried a little. I almost felt bad for him. That's called empathy. It's a good quality, even when people don't deserve it. Maya still didn't invite me to her party. David pulled out of the parking lot, navigating the after-school traffic with practiced patience. Would you even want to go? To the party of someone whose mom thinks you're too much? Lily was quiet for a long moment, watching the world pass outside her window. No, she finally said, but I want to be the kind of person who gets invited. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. You want to be chosen. That's human. Were you chosen today, Daddy? At work. The question caught David off guard. What do you mean? You said there's an important lady deciding if your company is good enough. Did she choose you? I don't know yet, Bug. She's still deciding. I hope she chooses you. You're really good at your job. You help people. David reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand. Thanks, Lilybug. That means more than you know. They stopped at Giovanni's Market on the way home, a family-owned grocery store that Jessica had loved because they still butchered meat on site and the produce came from local farms. David grabbed a cart, and Lily immediately headed for the bakery section where Mrs. Giovanni always gave her a free cookie. David! Maria Giovanni called from behind the meat counter. She was 71, had been running this market for 43 years with her husband Antonio, and treated her regular customers like extended family. I haven't seen you in 2 weeks. You been eating? Mostly cereal and takeout, David admitted. No. This is not acceptable. You have a growing daughter. Maria bustled out from behind the counter, wiping her hands on her apron. I'm making you my chicken cacciatore. You come by Friday evening. I have it ready. No arguing. Maria, you don't have to. I don't have to. I want to. Jessica, God rest her soul. She would haunt me if I let her family eat cereal for dinner. Maria crossed herself. Besides, Antonio asks about Lily every day. How's our little princess? He says, come Friday, have dinner with us. It's lonely in that house, isn't it? David's throat tightened. Sometimes. Yeah. Then Friday, 5 o'clock. We eat, we talk. Lily plays with the shop cat. Is settled. There was no arguing with Maria Giovanni when she'd made up her mind. David accepted with gratitude and continued shopping, filling the cart with enough food to get through the week. At checkout, he watched the total climb, $127.43, and felt the familiar anxiety about his bank balance. The car still needed brakes. Lily needed new shoes for gym class. The water heater was making concerning sounds, but they had food, and a roof, and each other. More than some people, less than others. Exactly enough, if he was careful. At home, Lily dumped her backpack by the door and immediately went to the living room window. Can I go play outside, please? Maya's not there, so it won't be awkward. 30 minutes, then homework, and stay where I can see you. Lily disappeared into the yard, and David began the evening routine. Unpack groceries, start a load of laundry, prep dinner, review Lily's homework folder, respond to work emails on his phone. The house felt enormous and empty without Jessica's presence. Her laugh, her terrible singing, her habit of leaving books open on every surface because she read 12 things simultaneously and never finished any of them. His phone rang. Charles Whitmore. David, how did it go with Victoria? Well, I think. She's sharp. Saw all our weaknesses but also understood our strengths. She asked specifically about you. Wanted to know your background, how long you've been with us, why you haven't been promoted to VP level. David's heart rate picked up. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're our most valuable operations person. That you turned down the VP position 3 years ago because the travel requirements weren't compatible with single parenthood. And that I've been an idiot for not finding a way to make it work around your constraints. Charles, let me finish. Victoria pointed out that in this century, we have video conferencing, flexible schedules, and a dozen ways to accommodate talented employees who have lives outside work. She said if Ashford partners with us, one of her conditions will be modernizing our management structure, which might mean revisiting that VP offer with adjustments. David looked out the window at Lily, who was making chalk drawings on the driveway, intricate patterns of stars and flowers and rabbits with wings. I appreciate the thought, Charles. But Lily comes first. That's not negotiable. Understood. But think about it. More money means better security for both of you. A title means more say in company direction. And if Victoria's right about the flexible work model, you might be able to do both. Be the father you need to be and advance your career. I'll think about it. After Charles hung up, David stood at the window for a long moment, watching his daughter create art on concrete, temporary beauty that the next rain would wash away. She was singing to herself, some song from school, her voice carrying through the open window. The doorbell rang. David opened it to find Eleanor Hartley from the park, the woman who'd given him the brochure about the grief program. Mr. Sanders, I hope I'm not intruding. I wanted to follow up personally about the Art Through Grief program. She held out a folder. I brought some examples of what the children create, art projects, journal entries, that sort of thing. No pressure, but I thought seeing the actual work might help you decide if it's right for Lily. David took the folder. Inside were photos of children's artwork, paintings of memories, collages about feelings, clay sculptures representing loss and hope. There was also a letter from a parent. Before this program, my son hadn't talked about his father's death in 6 months. Now he talks about him every day, sharing happy memories instead of holding in pain. This program gave us both permission to grieve out loud. When does it start? David heard himself ask. 3 weeks. First session is September 15th, 2 to 4 p.m. every Saturday. It's a 12-week program, completely free, run by licensed art therapists who specialize in childhood grief. David's world revolves around 2 central pillars: his 7-year-old daughter Lily and his job as operations manager at Meridian Industries, a struggling logistics company. 2 years after losing his wife Jessica to cancer, David exists in a state of perpetual exhaustion. Not the dramatic kind that makes for good television, but the grinding, relentless fatigue of someone who simply never stops moving because stopping means feeling, and feeling means breaking down when a little girl needs him to be strong. Lily is a remarkable child carrying grief too heavy for her small shoulders. She processes her mother's death through art, creating elaborate family trees where her mother appears with angel wings, and speaks about loss with the matter-of-fact honesty that only children possess. At school, she eats lunch alone, not because other children are cruel, but because their parents are afraid of her sadness, as if grief might be contagious. She's too much for playdates, her emotional honesty making adults uncomfortable. David sees all of this. He feels the weight of it pressing down on both of them. He's doing his best, making spaghetti from jars instead of homemade like Jessica used to, helping with long division at the kitchen table, maintaining the rituals of bath time and story time and bedtime that hold their fragile world together. But he constantly questions whether his best is enough. At work, David faces a different kind of pressure. Meridian Industries is hemorrhaging money and contracts. His boss, Charles Whitmore, has brought in a corporate consultant to evaluate the company's viability and, by extension, to evaluate David's leadership. The unspoken threat hangs heavy. Turn things around, or everyone loses their jobs. Victoria Ashford arrives like a force of nature, Sharp, brilliant, intimidating in her precision. She's a senior executive from Ashford Global, a shipping conglomerate that makes Meridian look like a corner grocery store compared to a multinational supermarket chain. With her tailored suits, penetrating dark eyes, and reputation for ruthless efficiency, Victoria represents everything David has learned to be wary of in corporate culture. Results over people, profit over humanity. Their first meeting is professional but charged. David gives her the standard corporate tour, showing her the warehouse operations he's spent years optimizing. Introducing her to his team, 37 people whose livelihoods depend on impressing this woman who holds their futures in her perfectly manicured hands. Throughout the tour, Victoria asks incisive questions, takes meticulous notes, and reveals nothing about her conclusions. What makes Victoria dangerous isn't cruelty, it's competence. She sees everything. She notices the inefficiencies David has been too close to identify. She recognizes the redundancies in staffing structure. She calculates the cost-benefit analysis of every position, every process, every decision. And she does all of this with the dispassionate precision of someone who has learned to view businesses as systems rather than communities. But there's something else David notices, glimpses of humanity beneath the corporate armor. The way Victoria's expression softens when she watches Maria Gonzalez efficiently sort packages. Her genuine interest in Tom Rivera's innovative loading sequences. Small moments that suggest there's more to her than quarterly reports and profit margins. Their next meeting happens at Roasted Dreams, a carefully curated coffee shop that costs twice as much as it should. Victoria arrives looking less like a CEO and more human, her dark hair down instead of severely pulled back. She presents David with her preliminary findings. His operational improvements have saved Meridian significant money. His employee retention is well above industry average. His routing optimizations demonstrate genuine innovation. And then she delivers the devastating conclusion. It's not enough. Incremental improvements won't save a dying company. What Meridian needs is radical transformation, the kind that requires cutting 15 to 20% of the workforce. 15 to 20%. David does the math automatically. 6 to 8 people from his team alone. Maria Gonzalez, who's been with them for 9 years. Tom Rivera, who's saving for his wedding. Jackie Patterson, whose birthday banner still hangs in the break room. These aren't statistics. They're people with grandchildren and wedding plans and dreams of going back to school. Victoria presents her case with unflinching honesty. She frames it as a trolley problem. Do nothing and everyone loses their jobs when the company collapses. Or make painful cuts now and save 70% of the workforce long-term. The math is sound. The logic is irrefutable. But logic doesn't account for Maria's granddaughter's quinceañera or Tom's wedding or the 100 human details that make resource optimization decisions into life-altering traumas. David challenges her. When she makes these decisions, restructuring, downsizing, whatever corporate euphemism makes it more palatable, does she think about the people afterward? The ones whose names move from the employed column to the severed column? Victoria's answer is startlingly honest. Yes, she thinks about them. She thinks about Sarah Chun in Singapore who cried in her office. She thinks about Marcus Webb who couldn't find another job after 18 years of loyal service. She thinks about all of them. But she does it anyway, because the alternative is worse. In this moment, David sees the full complexity of Victoria Ashford. She's not a heartless corporate automaton. She's someone who's chosen to carry the weight of impossible decisions, who's accepted the role of being the one who pulls the lever in the trolley problem, who bears the burden of pragmatism so others don't have to. Their relationship evolves in unexpected ways. Victoria asks to shadow David's warehouse team for a full day, to understand the work from their perspective. She shows up at 6 a.m. in steel-toed boots and practical clothes, ready to work rather than merely observe. She helps Maria sort packages, rides with forklift operator Danny Chun, stands at loading docks with Tom Rivera learning the choreography of logistics. The warehouse workers, initially terrified of the woman deciding their fate, gradually warm to her. Victoria demonstrates genuine curiosity, asks thoughtful questions, and takes notes not just on inefficiencies but on innovations. The ways experienced workers have developed techniques that exceed industry standards. Meanwhile, cracks appear in both their professional facades. Victoria admits that her father built a shipping empire by prioritizing business above everything, including his daughter. She learned early that if you want something done right, you do it yourself, because people don't show up. This admission, vulnerable and unexpected, reveals the loneliness that shaped her. David reciprocates with his own truth. He turned down a VP promotion because it required 60% travel, and his newly motherless 6-year-old daughter needed stability more than he needed a title. Ambition is great, but it's not worth losing your child in the process. These moments of honesty create an unexpected intimacy. They're both people shaped by loss, Victoria by emotional abandonment, David by death, both trying to build something meaningful in its wake. The professional dynamic shifts when David's daughter Lily gets sick at school. He leaves immediately to pick her up, and Victoria handles the crisis that emerges. Evidence of deliberate system sabotage. Someone has been manipulating Meridian's shipping routes to cause delays and make the company look unreliable to clients. Instead of demanding David return to handle it, Victoria coordinates the cybersecurity investigation herself and then calls to check on Lily. Her advice is simple and devastating. My father never once picked me up from school. Not for illness, not for emergencies. I learned early that work always came first. Don't be like him. In that moment, David understands that Victoria's ruthless pragmatism isn't born from not caring. It's born from caring too much and learning that care alone doesn't keep companies or families intact. Parallel to the corporate drama runs another crucial storyline: Lily's journey through grief. David struggles to help his daughter process emotions that overwhelm even him. She creates elaborate artwork featuring her mother with angel wings. She asks questions with heartbreaking honesty. Will you forget what mommy looked like? Do you think she'd be proud of us? A breakthrough comes through Eleanor Hartley, who runs the Art Through Grief program at the community center. Eleanor explains a concept that resonates deeply with David. Children don't get over loss. They grow around it. The grief doesn't shrink, but they become bigger, so it fits differently. This metaphor becomes central to the story. One child's artwork shows a tree with half its leaves fallen but new buds growing on empty branches. Beneath it, Dad says we're growing around the sad. It doesn't go away, but we grow bigger, so it fits different. David commits to enrolling Lily in the program, recognizing that both of them need community and support to navigate their grief. It's an acknowledgement that surviving isn't the same as thriving, and that he can't carry this burden alone. The cybersecurity investigation reveals that a competitor bribed a Meridian IT employee to sabotage their systems, deliberately rerouting packages to make the company appear unreliable. This explains why Meridian has been losing contracts despite strong operational performance. The employee is terminated, legal action initiated, and the evidence clears the way for a different kind of business relationship. Victoria presents her formal recommendation to the Ashford Global Board: acquire 40% of Meridian Industries with an $8 million infrastructure investment while maintaining current leadership and workforce. Instead of the mass layoffs she initially proposed, Victoria restructures the 12 at-risk positions. Janet becomes Benefits Coordination Manager. Paul moves to Process Improvement. Sandra becomes Director of Vendor Relations. Everyone keeps their jobs, though several with different titles and enhanced responsibilities. When David asks how she convinced her board, Victoria's answer reveals her growth. I told them that Meridian's value isn't in its infrastructure, it's in its people. That trying to turn you into a typical corporate entity would destroy exactly what makes you worth investing in. She also admits she told them David wouldn't agree to partnership otherwise, and losing him would cost more than a few redundant positions. It's a professional compliment that carries personal weight, an acknowledgement that he changed her thinking about what makes a company valuable. Charles Whitmore offers David the VP of Operations position, restructured with flexible scheduling and minimal travel. David accepts only after securing commitments for warehouse staff wage increases and funding for the Art Through Grief program. His negotiation priorities reveal his values: people over prestige, community over corporate advancement. The professional partnership creates space for something more personal to develop. David and Victoria's coffee meetings become daily rituals. They discuss business, yes, but also life, the weight of responsibility, the complexity of balancing ambition with humanity, the loneliness of leadership. Victoria's board wants her to stay in the city permanently to oversee the Meridian partnership. She tells David she'd need a good reason to disrupt her New York life. When he asks if he would be a good reason, her answer is perfect. You and a little girl who makes art with angel wings and a team of warehouse workers who actually care about each other and a city that makes real pasta and has purple slides in its parks. Yes, that's a very good reason. The turning point comes at Lily's first art through grief session. David watches through the observation window as his daughter paints her mother. Not with angel wings this time, but just as she'd been. Human, real, loved. Victoria arrives unexpectedly with coffee, wanting to understand what David fought to fund. When Lily emerges with her painting, she meets Victoria with characteristic directness. "Do you make my daddy smile?" Victoria's honest answer, "I hope so. He makes me smile," earns Lily's approval. "Good. He needs more smiles." "We both do." It's a moment of profound simplicity. A child recognizing that her father deserves happiness. A woman who built walls around her heart finding the courage to dismantle them. A man learning that loving again doesn't diminish what he had before. 3 months later, Victoria moves permanently to the city, taking an apartment 3 blocks from Giovanni's Market, the pasta place David recommended during their early professional exchanges. She integrates into David and Lily's life naturally, joining Friday dinners with Maria and her husband Antonio, learning to appreciate purple slides and sidewalk chalk, discovering that building a life is more rewarding than building an empire. The ending is quietly triumphant. David learns that love can happen twice, differently but equally real. That grief and joy can coexist. That his heart has room for both memory and future. That being chosen, something his daughter once told him about, feels exactly as wonderful as she promised. Victoria learns that vulnerability isn't weakness, that people can show up, that the ruthless pragmatism that served her in boardrooms isn't necessary in all aspects of life. She discovers that investing in people yields returns no spreadsheet can calculate. And Lily, brave and complicated and beautiful, continues growing around her grief. She gains not a replacement mother but another adult who cares. Another source of stability. Another person in her corner. This story works on multiple levels. It's a romance, yes, but it's also about ethical leadership in corporate America. The tension between profit and people. The courage required to make difficult decisions humanely. The possibility of doing well financially while doing good morally. It's about single parenthood and the crushing weight of being everything to a grieving child while managing your own grief. About the isolation that comes when other adults are afraid of your family's sadness. About finding community and support instead of trying to carry impossible burdens alone. It's about corporate culture and the question of whether businesses can be both profitable and humane. David and Victoria represent different philosophies that ultimately synthesize into something better than either approach alone. Victoria's strategic thinking combined with David's emotional intelligence creates a model for sustainable, ethical business. Most profoundly, it's about grief and healing. The central metaphor, growing around the sad rather than getting over it, offers a healthier framework for processing loss. Grief doesn't shrink or disappear. We simply become bigger, developing new capacities for joy that accommodate rather than replace our sorrow. The story suggests that second chances aren't betrayals of first loves. That choosing happiness after loss isn't forgetting or dishonoring what came before. That our hearts have infinite capacity to hold both past and present, memory and hope. In a world that often demands we choose between professional success and personal fulfillment, between being strong and being vulnerable, between honoring the past and embracing the future, this story offers a different path. David doesn't sacrifice his team for advancement. Victoria doesn't maintain her emotional walls to protect herself from potential hurt. Lily doesn't pretend to be less sad to make adults comfortable. Instead, they each choose integration over division. David becomes a VP who still shows up for his daughter. Victoria becomes an executive who values people over profit margins. Lily becomes a child who can hold both her mother's memory and her father's new relationship. The warehouse workers, Maria, Tom, Danny, and dozens of others, aren't just background characters. They're fully human participants in a story about workplace dignity and the radical notion that employees deserve to be treated as valuable human beings rather than expendable resources. The corporate setting grounds the romance in realistic stakes. This isn't a fantasy where love conquers all without cost. It's a story where love grows alongside hard work, difficult decisions, and the daily grind of balancing competing demands, where happy endings feel earned rather than given. If this story of second chances, single parenthood, and finding love amid life's complexities resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to our channel for more heartfelt contemporary romance stories. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new release. And if you enjoyed this summary, a like and comment telling us your favorite moment would mean the world.